The medical ship floated quietly in the darkness of space. Its name was Mercy's Hand, and it carried no weapons. Only doctors, nurses, and the wounded soldiers they tried to save. Dr. Una Park stood in the surgery room, her hands deep inside the chest of an alien. The creature was a WarHFY, a tall reptile-like being with green scales and yellow eyes. His people were at war with humanity. They had been fighting for 11 years. But right now, none of that mattered to Una. "Doctor, why are you saving him?" asked the security guard at the door. "He's the enemy. His people killed my brother last month." Una did not look up. Her fingers moved carefully around the alien's heart. "I am a healer," she said simply. "I heal. That is what I do." The guard shook his head and walked away. He did not understand. Most people did not understand. Una was 34 years old. She had soft features and kind eyes that always seemed tired. She had joined the military not to fight, but to save lives. In her entire career, she had never fired a weapon. She did not even know how to use one properly. The WarHFY soldier on her table groaned. His escape pod had crashed near human territory 3 days ago. When they found him, he was barely alive. Most of the crew wanted to let him die. Una refused. "His heart is stable now," she said to her assistant, Nurse Jiwoo Han. "We should move him to recovery." Jiwoo nodded. She was Una's closest friend on the ship. They had worked together for 5 years. "The captain wants to speak with you," Jiwoo said quietly. "He seems worried." Una washed the blood from her hands. "He is always worried. That is his job." She found Captain Taeho Kim on the bridge. He was an older man with gray hair and a face full of scars. He had been fighting the WarHFY since the war began. He had seen terrible things, but he respected Una deeply. She was different from anyone he had ever met. "Doctor," he said when she entered, "we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" The captain pointed to the screen. It showed space around their ship. Small dots were moving toward them. Many small dots. "WarHFY fleet," he said. "They found us. I do not know how." Una felt her stomach drop. The Mercy's Hand had no weapons. It could not fight. It could only run. "How long until they reach us?" she asked. 20 minutes. Maybe less. The next few minutes were chaos. Alarms screamed through the ship. Crew members ran to their stations. The captain ordered everyone to prepare for emergency escape, but the WarHFY were too fast. Their ship surrounded the Mercy's Hand before anyone could escape. Una watched through the window as the massive warships blocked out the stars. "All hands, prepare for boarding," the captain announced. His voice was calm, but Una could see the fear in his eyes. "Medical staff, destroy all sensitive data. We cannot let them learn our secrets." Una ran back to the medical bay. Her patients were still there. Human soldiers, too weak to move. And in the corner, the WarHFY soldier she had just saved. "Doctor, you need to leave," Jiwoo said, grabbing her arm. "The escape pods are ready." "I cannot leave them," Una said. "They will die. You will die if you stay." The ship shook as something hit it. The lights flickered. Somewhere, an explosion tore through metal. Una could hear screaming. She looked at her patients. At the young soldier with the burned face. At the woman who had lost her legs. At the WarHFY who was still unconscious, not knowing that his own people were attacking. "Go," Una told Jiwoo. "Get to the escape pod. Take as many as you can. Una, please. Go now." Jiwoo's eyes filled with tears. She hugged Una quickly, then ran. Una watched her disappear around the corner. The doors to the medical bay exploded inward. WarHFY soldiers poured in, their weapons raised. They were tall and frightening, with armor that made them look like monsters. Yuna stood in front of her patients. She raised her hands to show she had no weapon. Her heart was beating so fast she thought it might burst. "I am a doctor," she said clearly. "These are my patients. I will not let you harm them." The WarHFY soldiers looked at each other. One of them laughed. It was a cold, harsh sound. A larger WarHFY pushed through the group. He wore different armor, more decorated. He was clearly the leader. He studied Yuna with his yellow eyes for a long moment. "You are the human who saved our soldier," he said. His voice was deep and rough. "We intercepted your medical reports." General Doras was very interested. Yuna said nothing. "You saved an enemy. Your own people thought you were foolish. Yet you did it anyway." The WarHFY tilted his head. "Why?" "Because it was right," Yuna said. The WarHFY made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Your weakness is fascinating. The general wants to study it. You will come with us." Soldiers grabbed Yuna's arms. She did not fight. She knew it was pointless. As they dragged her toward the door, she looked back at her patients. The young soldier with the burned face was crying silently. "I am sorry," she whispered. They pulled her through the broken ship. She saw bodies on the floor. Some were human. Some were WarHFY. The battle had been short and brutal. Outside the window, she could see the Mercy's hand burning. Pieces of it were breaking away and floating into space. Her home for the last 3 years was dying. A soldier pushed her into a transport ship. The door closed behind her. Through the small window, she watched the Mercy's hand break apart completely. She was alone now, a prisoner of the enemy. She had nothing except the small medical kit she had hidden inside her clothing. A few bandages, some basic tools. Medicine for pain. It was not much. But Yuna had learned long ago that a healer did not need much. Just steady hands and a heart that refused to give up. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Whatever happened next, she would face it. She would survive. And she would keep healing, no matter what. That was her oath. And she would never break it. The prison was called Kethvoran. It sat on a cold moon far from any sun. The sky was always dark. The air was always cold. And death was everywhere. Yuna had been there for 3 days. In that time, she had seen more suffering than in her entire career. Thousands of prisoners lived in the camp. Humans, Talari, and other species the WarHFY had conquered. They were treated worse than animals. The guards did not give them enough food. The water was dirty. There was no medicine. When someone got sick, they simply died. On her first night, Yuna was thrown into a large room with 50 other prisoners. The floor was cold stone. There were no beds, just thin blankets that did nothing against the chill. A woman approached her. She had short hair and tired eyes. Her name was Bora Lee. "You are new," Bora said. Her voice was flat, without emotion. "How long have you been a prisoner?" 3 days, Yuna said. Bora laughed bitterly. "I have been here for 2 years. Let me give you some advice. Do not hope. Do not dream. Do not make friends. Just survive each day. That is all you can do." Yuna looked at her sadly. "What happened to you?" "This place happened." Bora walked away without another word. The next morning, Yuna saw something that changed everything. A young human soldier was working in the yard, carrying heavy stones. He was barely 20 years old, with a thin face and frightened eyes. His name was Suho Choi. He had been captured only a month ago. A WarHFY guard was watching him. The guard was bored and cruel. When Suho stumbled under the weight of a stone, the guard hit him with a metal rod. Suho fell. The guard hit him again. And again. Yuna heard the terrible sound of breaking bone. Suho screamed. The other prisoners looked away. They had learned not to interfere. Helping someone meant punishment. sometimes death. The guard finally stopped. He looked at Suho lying on the ground, his leg bent at a wrong angle. "Leave him," the guard said to the other prisoners. "He is useless now. He will die by morning." They left Suho there in the cold. Yuna waited until night came. When the guards were not watching, she crawled to where Suho lay. He was shaking badly. His face was pale from pain. "Who are you?" he whispered. "I am a doctor," Yuna said. "I am going to help you." She looked at his leg. It was broken in 2 places. She had no proper tools. No medicine. No splint, but she had her hands. And she had learned to work with nothing. She tore strips from her own clothing. She found a straight piece of metal in the garbage pile. Working slowly and carefully, she set his bones back into place. Suho bit down on a piece of cloth to keep from screaming. "This will hurt," she warned him. "But you will walk again. I promise." She worked through the entire night. By morning, his leg was wrapped tightly. It was not perfect, but it would heal. Words spread quickly through the prison. A human doctor had saved the young soldier. She had worked all night with nothing but scraps. She had not asked for anything in return. Prisoners began coming to her. Telari female with blue skin had a wound on her arm. It was infected and spreading. Without treatment, she would die in days. Yuna cleaned the wound with water and herbs she found in the prison garden. She taught the Telari how to change the bandages herself. A human man had a fever that would not break. Yuna made him drink water constantly. She used cold claws to bring down his temperature. After 3 days, he recovered. Then something strange happened. A young WarHFY came to her in secret. He was not a guard. He was a prisoner, like them. A defector who had refused to kill innocent people. His own kind had thrown him away like garbage. He had a parasite in his blood. The WarHFY had medicine for it, but they refused to treat traitors. He was dying slowly. "Why should I help you?" asked Bora, who was watching. "Your people put us here." Yuna looked at the young WarHFY. He was scared and alone, just like the rest of them. She saw no enemy. She only saw a patient. "Because he needs help," Yuna said. "That is enough." She found a way to treat him. It took weeks of careful work. She had to create medicine from plants that grew in the prison yard. But eventually, the parasite died. The young WarHFY lived. He wept when she told him he would survive. "No one has ever helped me," he said. "Not even my own family." Yuna touched his shoulder gently. "You are not alone anymore." Overseer Karth was the warden of the prison. He was a massive WarHFY with scars covering his face. He enjoyed watching prisoners suffer. It entertained him. One day, he noticed something strange. The death rate was dropping. Fewer prisoners were dying each week. This made him curious. He investigated and found the source. A small human woman was healing everyone. She worked without rest. She treated all species equally. The prisoners were starting to look healthier. Korath summoned Yuna to his office. "You are the doctor," he said, looking down at her. "The one who thinks she can fix everything." Yuna met his eyes without fear. "I am a healer. This is what I do." Korath laughed. "You think you can make a difference? In this place? You are foolish." "Perhaps," Yuna said. The overseer studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled cruelly. "I will give you what you want. You will work in the infirmary. You will have a room and basic supplies. Let us see how long your hope lasts." He expected her to fail. He wanted to watch her spirit break. Yuna bowed slightly. "Thank you." She walked into the infirmary for the first time. It was a horrible place. Dirty floors. Broken equipment. Patients lying on the ground, waiting to die. Bora followed her. "This is impossible," she said. "There are too many sick people. Not enough supplies. You cannot save them all. Una looked at the rows of suffering prisoners. Human, Talari, WarHFY, all of them in pain. All of them losing hope. She rolled up her sleeves. I cannot save them all, she admitted. But I can save some. And some is better than none. WarHFY stared at her. For the first time in 2 years, something flickered in her eyes. Something that might have been hope. You are either the bravest person I have ever met, WarHFY said, or the most foolish. Una smiled softly. Maybe both. She walked to the first patient and began to work. The night was long. The work was hard. But Una did not stop. She would never stop. Because the moment she stopped caring, they had already won. And Una Park refused to let them win. 6 months passed. The prison of Kethvaron was not the same place anymore. The infirmary was still small. The supplies were still limited, but something had changed. Hope had returned to the prisoners. And it all came from one small human woman. Una worked every single day. She woke before the sun and slept long after it set. She treated hundreds of patients. She taught other prisoners how to clean wounds, how to make simple medicine from plants, how to care for the sick. The prisoners called her the Pale Hand. At first, it was just a nickname. But slowly, it became something more. The Pale Hand was not just a doctor. She was a symbol. She was proof that kindness still existed, even in the darkest places. WarHFY had changed too. The woman who once told Una not to hope now worked beside her every day. She had found purpose again. I was wrong about you, WarHFY said one night, as they cleaned medical tools together. I thought hope was foolish. But you showed me that hope is the only thing that keeps us human. Una smiled tiredly. I did not do anything special. I just refused to give up. That is exactly what makes you special. The prisoners organized themselves around Una. Those she healed became loyal to her. Not because she asked for loyalty, but because she had given them something precious. She had given them a reason to live. They protected her. They gathered supplies for her. They kept watch while she worked. It was a secret network, invisible to the guards. But the guards were starting to notice. Something was different. Sergeant Vekin was one of those guards. He was a large WarHFY with dark green scales and cold eyes. He had worked at the prison for many years. He had seen thousands of prisoners die. It meant nothing to him. One day, Vekin collapsed during his patrol. His heart had stopped working properly. The other guards did not know what to do. WarHFY medicine was far away. By the time help arrived, he would be dead. A prisoner ran to find Una. She arrived to find Vekin lying on the ground, barely breathing. The other guards pointed their weapons at her. Stay back, human, one of them growled. Una ignored him. She knelt beside Vekin and examined him quickly. His heart rhythm was wrong. She had seen this before in human patients. But she had never treated a WarHFY for this condition. I can save him, she said. But I need you to trust me. The guards looked at each other uncertainly. He will die in minutes if I do nothing, Una said calmly. What do you have to lose? One guard lowered his weapon. Then another. Finally, they stepped back. Una worked quickly. She used a technique she had invented after studying WarHFY bodies for months. She pressed on certain points in his chest, trying to reset his heart rhythm. It was dangerous. It might not work, but it did. Vekin's eyes opened. He gasped for air. His heart was beating normally again. The guards stared in shock. A human had just saved one of them. A prisoner had saved a guard. Vekin looked up at Una. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, very quietly, he spoke. Why did you help me? I am your enemy. Una wiped sweat from her forehead. You were dying. That is all that mattered. She stood up and walked away, leaving the guards in stunned silence. After that day, Sergeant Vekin was different. He did not become kind, exactly. But he stopped being cruel. He looked the other way when prisoners needed extra time to rest. He pretended not to see when they shared food. He never said thank you. But Yuna understood. The story of what happened spread through the prison and beyond. Guards whispered about the human doctor who could bring people back from death. Some said she had strange powers. Others said she was not fully human. The legend of the Pale Hand grew. 3 months later, General Duras came to inspect the prison. He was the same commander who had captured Yuna on the Mercy's Hand. He wanted to see what had become of his curious prisoner. What he found shocked him. The death rate had dropped by 60%. Prisoners who should have died months ago were still alive. The infirmary, once a place where people went to die, had become a place of healing. And at the center of it all was the small human woman with tired eyes and gentle hands. Doris summoned her to his office. Yuna stood before him, her hands folded calmly. She was thin from months of hard work. Her clothes were worn, but her eyes were still bright. Her spirit was not broken. "You have done something impossible," Doris said. "You have turned a death camp into something else." "I want to know how." Yuna considered her answer carefully. "Humans evolved on a difficult world," she said. "Our planet was dangerous. Predators hunted us. Diseases killed us. We were not the strongest or the fastest. By all logic, we should have died." Doris leaned forward, interested. "But we survived," Yuna continued. "We survived because we learned to work together. We learned that helping each other was not weakness. It was our greatest strength. Compassion kept us alive when nothing else could." "You call it strength," Doris said slowly. "We call it weakness. And yet," Yuna said, "your prisoners are living. Your guards are conflicted. Your beliefs are being questioned. Tell me, General, does that feel like weakness to you?" Doris was silent for a long time. Finally, he made a decision. "You will be transferred," he said, "to a military hospital near the front lines. If you can heal so well, you will heal our soldiers. You will prove that human compassion can serve the Varth Empire." Yuna nodded. She had expected something like this. "I will heal anyone who needs healing," she said. "That has always been my way." On her last night at the prison, something beautiful happened. The prisoners gathered outside her small room. Humans, Talari, the young Varth defector, and many others. They had come to say goodbye. One by one, they pressed small gifts into her hands. A stone carved into the shape of a flower. A strip of cloth with words of blessing written on it. A small shell from someone's home planet. Suho Choi walked forward on the leg she had saved. He was limping, but he was alive. He hugged her tightly. "You saved my life," he said. "I will never forget you." Bora was the last to approach. Her eyes were wet with tears. "Come back to us," she said, "or we will come find you." Yuna hugged her friend. "Take care of them," she whispered. "Continue the work." "I will," Bora promised. The next morning, guards came to take Yuna away. As she walked toward the transport ship, she passed Sergeant Vekin. He was standing at attention, like all the guards. But as she walked by, something happened. Something that had never happened before in the history of that prison. Vekin looked at her, and he nodded, just slightly. A gesture of respect. Yuna nodded back. Then she stepped onto the transport ship, and the prison of Kethvoran disappeared behind her. She did not know what waited for her at the front lines. She did not know if she would survive. But she knew one thing for certain. She would keep healing. She would keep showing mercy. She would keep being human, because that was her power. And it was a power the Varth did not understand. Not yet. The military station was called Ironblood. It floated above a burning planet where millions of soldiers fought and died every day. Through the windows, Yuna could see flashes of light on the surface below. Each flash was an explosion. Each explosion meant death. This was the heart of the war. Yuna was taken to the medical ward immediately. It was much larger than the prison infirmary. There were real beds, real equipment, real medicine. But there were also hundreds of wounded Vorath soldiers, and not enough doctors to treat them. A Vorath physician met her at the door. His name was Dr. Solus Varn. He was tall and proud, with scales that shimmered like dark metal. He looked at Yuna with disgust. "So you are the famous human healer," he said coldly. "I have heard stories about you. I do not believe them." Yuna bowed slightly. "I am just a doctor. Nothing more." "You are a prisoner," Varn corrected. "You are here to work. If your patients die, no one will care. If you cause trouble, you will be killed. Do you understand?" "I understand." Varn pointed to a section of the ward filled with the most severely wounded soldiers. "Those are yours. The ones we expect to die. Try to keep some of them alive, if you can." He walked away without another word. Yuna looked at her new patients. Many of them were missing limbs. Others had terrible burns. Some were so damaged she could barely tell they were still alive. She rolled up her sleeves and got to work. The first week was brutal. Yuna worked 20 hours every day. She slept in short bursts between surgeries. She ate only when someone forced food into her hands, but she saved lives. Soldiers who should have died recovered. Wounds that seemed hopeless began to heal. Slowly, the number of deaths in her section dropped. Dr. Varn noticed. At first, he thought it was luck. Then he thought it was a mistake. Finally, he was forced to accept the truth. The human was better than him. Wounded soldiers began asking for her by name. They called her the Pale Hand, the same name the prisoners had used. When they learned they were assigned to her section, they relaxed. When they were assigned to Varn, they looked afraid. This made Varn angry. He tried to sabotage her. He hid medical supplies. He gave her the worst cases. He criticized her in front of other staff. Yuna did not fight back. She simply adapted. When supplies disappeared, she found alternatives. When cases were impossible, she invented new techniques. When Varn insulted her, she stayed silent and kept working. "Why do you not defend yourself?" asked a young Vorath nurse one night. Yuna smiled tiredly. "Because winning an argument is not important. Saving lives is important. I do not have energy for both." Commander Kyung-ho Beek found her 3 weeks after she arrived. He was a human prisoner of war, a former Special Forces soldier. The Vorath used him for heavy labor on the station. He was strong and smart, and he had been quietly building a resistance network among the human prisoners. "Dr. Park," he whispered to her in the hallway one night, "I have heard about you. Everyone has. We need your help." Yuna looked at him carefully. "What kind of help?" "Your medical bay has access to important areas of the station. We could use that access for certain activities." He meant sabotage. He meant fighting back. Yuna shook her head slowly. "I will not use healing as a weapon. I will not turn my medical bay into a military operation." Kyung-ho frowned. "These creatures have killed millions of our people. They hold us as slaves. Do you not want revenge?" "I want the war to end," Yuna said. "But not like this. Not by becoming like them." For a moment, Kyung-ho looked angry. Then his expression softened. "I understand," he said. "I do not agree, but I understand." Yuna touched his arm. "I will not stop your resistance. What you do is your choice. And when your people get hurt, bring them to me. I will heal them, no questions asked." Kyung-ho nodded slowly. "You are a strange person, Doctor, so I've been told." Word of the Pale Hand continued to spread. It went beyond the station. It spread through the entire Vorath military. Soldiers talked about her in whispers. They said she could bring the dead back to life. They said she never slept. They said she had healed Vorath and human and Talari without caring which was which. Some said she was a demon. Others said she was something else entirely. High Marshal Drevin heard the stories. He was the supreme commander of all Vorath forces, the most powerful military leader in the Empire. He had won 100 battles. He had conquered a dozen worlds, and he was curious about a single human doctor. He visited the Ironblood station without warning. He walked into the medical ward and stood in the corner, watching. No one noticed him at first. They were too busy. Yuna was in the middle of surgery. A young Vorath soldier had a piece of metal lodged near his heart. It was a delicate operation. One wrong move, and he would die. She worked for 3 hours. Her hands never shook. Her concentration never broke. When she finally removed the metal, the soldier's heart kept beating. Drevin watched the whole thing. When Yuna finished, she washed her hands and walked toward her next patient. That was when she noticed the High Marshal standing in the shadows. She stopped. She knew who he was. Everyone knew who he was. "Dr. Park," Drevin said. His voice was deep and calm. "I have traveled a long way to meet you." "I am honored," Yuna said carefully. "I want to understand something." Drevin stepped closer. His yellow eyes studied her like she was a puzzle he needed to solve. "Why do you save my soldiers? They would kill your people without hesitation." "They have killed your people. Millions of them." Yuna thought about her answer for a long moment. "Every life I save is a choice," she said finally. "Every choice is a crack in the foundation of everything you believe. Your empire is built on the idea that mercy is weakness, that compassion is foolish, that only the strong deserve to survive." She met his eyes without fear. "I am proving you wrong," she said. "One patient at a time." Drevin was silent. His face showed nothing, but something shifted in his eyes. Something that might have been doubt. "You think you can change us," he said, "with bandages and kind words. I think I already have." She turned and walked to her next patient, leaving the most powerful Vorath in the galaxy standing alone in the shadows. That night, Vorath soldiers shared a new rumor. The Pale Hand had spoken to the High Marshal himself. She had looked into his eyes and told him his empire was wrong, and he had said nothing. The rumor spread like fire. On ships, on planets, on battlefields. Everyone was talking about the human doctor who showed no fear. She was no longer just a healer. She was becoming something else. She was becoming a legend, and legends, once born, can never be destroyed. The war had reached its final hour. Human coalition forces launched the largest attack in history. They called it Operation Homecoming. Thousands of ships crossed enemy lines. Their mission was simple: rescue the prisoners and push the Vorath back forever. The Ironblood station became a target. Yuna heard the alarms first. Then came the explosions. The station shook as human ships attacked from all directions. Through the windows, she saw flashes of light as fighters battled in the darkness of space. "All staff, evacuate immediately," announced the speakers. "This is not a drill. We are under attack." Doctors and nurses ran for the escape pods. But Yuna stayed. She had patients who could not move. She had wounded soldiers who would die if she left. A young Vorath nurse grabbed her arm. "Doctor, you must go. The humans are coming to rescue you." "I am a healer," Yuna said calmly. "I do not leave patients." She kept working. The fighting came closer. She could hear weapons fire in the hallways. Screams, explosions. The walls shook with each impact. And still, the wounded kept coming. Vorath soldiers with fresh injuries from the battle. Human prisoners who had been hurt during the chaos. Yuna treated them all, side by side on the same beds. Kyung-ho Beek burst into the medical bay with a group of human prisoners. They had risen up against their captors. They were armed now, ready to fight. "Doctor!" Kyung-ho shouted. "Coalition forces have breached the station. We need to move." "I have patience," Yuna said without looking up. Kyung-ho stared at her. She was stitching a wound on a Varth soldier, while a human marine waited for his turn beside them. "Enemy and ally being treated together. You are saving them?" Kyung-ho asked in disbelief. "After everything?" "They are hurt," Yuna said simply. "That is all that matters." Before Kyung-ho could respond, Coalition soldiers entered the medical bay. They were led by Lieutenant Ha-jin Yoon, a young officer with a scar across her cheek. "Dr. Park?" Ha-jin asked. "We are here to extract you. We have orders to bring you home." Yuna finally looked up. "I will leave when my patients are stable. All of them." "Doctor, we do not have time." "Then make time." Ha-jin opened her mouth to argue. But before she could speak, something unexpected happened. Sergeant Vekin walked through the door. The Coalition soldiers raised their weapons immediately. Vekin was a Varth guard, an enemy, a threat, but Vekin did not attack. He positioned himself at the entrance of the medical bay, his weapon pointed outward. He was guarding the door. "What are you doing?" Ha-jin demanded. Vekin did not look at her. His eyes stayed on the hallway beyond. "She saved my life," he said. "Now I save hers." Ha-jin was speechless. More Vorath soldiers appeared behind Vekin. Not to attack, to join him. They were all patients Yuna had treated. Soldiers whose lives she had saved. They formed a line in front of the medical bay, creating a barrier between Yuna and anyone who might threaten her. "We stand with the pale hand," one of them said. At that moment, High Marshal Dreven arrived. He came with his personal guard, the best soldiers in the Vorath Empire. He had come to take Yuna as a hostage. She was valuable. She could be used to negotiate, but when he reached the medical bay, he found his own soldiers blocking his path. "Move aside," Dreven ordered. No one moved. Vekin stepped forward. His voice was steady. "She is not your prisoner. She belongs to no one. She is the Pale Hand, and we will not let you take her." Dreven stared at him in shock. A Vorath soldier was defying his supreme commander. For a human? For an enemy? "This is treason," Dreven said quietly. "Perhaps," Vekin replied. "But she showed us something your empire never did. She showed us mercy, and we choose to repay it." The moment stretched like an eternity. Everyone waited. Coalition soldiers, Vorath guards, patients lying on their beds, all watching. Dreven looked past his defiant soldiers. He looked at Yuna, who had finally stopped working and was watching him with her tired, kind eyes. He remembered their conversation. Her words echoed in his mind. "Every life I save is a choice. Every choice is a crack in the foundation." He had called her weak. He had thought compassion was foolishness. But now his own soldiers were choosing her over their empire. Her mercy had done what no weapon ever could. It had broken something inside them. Something that could not be repaired. "Stand down," Dreven said to his guards. His soldiers lowered their weapons. The tension in the room released like a held breath. Dreven walked slowly toward Yuna. The Coalition soldiers kept their weapons ready. But Ha-jin raised her hand, telling them to wait. The High Marshal stopped in front of the small human woman. He was 3 times her size. He had commanded armies. He had destroyed worlds, and she looked at him without fear. "You have broken something in us," Dreven said quietly. "Something that cannot be repaired. I do not know if I should hate you or thank you." Yuna looked at him with exhausted, gentle eyes. "When you figure it out," she said, "come find me. I will still be healing." Dreven nodded once. Then he turned and walked away. His guards followed him. Ha-jin stepped forward, amazed at what she had witnessed. "Dr. Park, it is time to go home." This time, Yuna nodded. Her patients were stable. The fighting was ending. She had done everything she could. She walked out of the medical bay, past the Vara soldiers who had defended her. Each one nodded as she passed. Each one spoke the same words. Thank you, Pale Hand. The war ended 3 years later. Not with total victory, but with peace. Historians would debate the causes for generations. Some said it was military strategy. Others said it was political pressure. A few pointed to economic factors, but soldiers on both sides told a different story. They spoke of a human woman who walked through the war with nothing but bandages and compassion, who healed enemies and allies alike, who proved that mercy was not weakness, but the greatest strength of all. They said she changed the war. They said she changed them. Dr. Yuna Park returned to Earth. She opened a small clinic in a quiet town. She treated anyone who walked through her door, just as she always had. Sometimes, late at night, she received unusual visitors. Varth veterans would travel across the galaxy just to see her again. They would sit in her waiting room, looking awkward and out of place. When she called them in, they would not say much. Just a few words of gratitude. Just a moment of connection. Then they would leave, and she would never see them again. The Varth Dominion officially changed their historical records. In every document that once described humans as weak, they removed the word dot in its place. They wrote something else. They wrote, dangerous, not because of human weapons, not because of human ships, because of human hearts, because one small woman had shown them that compassion could break empires, that kindness could win wars, that the hand that heals is more powerful than the hand that destroys, and that, the Varth understood, was the most dangerous thing of all. Years later, when children asked about the war, their parents would tell them the same story. Once, they would say there was a healer. She was captured by her enemies. They threw her in prison. They tried to break her spirit. They used her for their own purposes, but she never stopped being kind. She never stopped helping. She never stopped being human. And in the end, she did not defeat her enemies with violence. She defeated them with love. That, the parents would say, is why we must always remember her. That is why her story will never be forgotten. That is the legend of the Pale Hand, and legends live forever.